Where's your little cuddle bunny?
What?
I saw it went down and here you all cozied up with your little girlfriend.
I ain't gay.
Look pretty gay to me.
We just friends.
Yeah? Just friends? And you're lonely. Want to be touched. Need a hug? Maybe even more than a hug. Need all that drama of someone to call your own. Let me tell you something. Gay for the state is for punk ass bitches who aren't strong enough to be true to themselves.
Told you. I ain't like that.
I know that. And I also know that when you get out of here, you don't want people on the block talking about how you went that way. On the gay entry.
All right, let's get after it. All right, looking at the daily charts. All right, so looking at the daily charts, all that really sticks out to me is we have sold off deeper on ES over here than we have on NQ. We still have a pocket of lows on the 4 hour. They look really primed to be swept to me. Um, this is current week low, relative equal low. I got this one, both of these called out as relative equals, just to have it marked as something. ES has already taken that cluster of lows, so we do have an active SMT. But if the sell off continues, this SMT will be invalidated. So we need to be careful in using that. Couple of draws higher that I see for today. We got a New York PM. Um, basically would require us to kind of flip the last hourly leg. On the 1 hour, this down move looks, kind of like a solid leg on the 1 hour. Um, to get to that, and then you have previous day high, which is all-time high on NASDAQ, but not for NQ because of this high time frame SMT. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. So if I zoom in from there, I like using the 4 hour usually. I mean, that's where I'm getting my draws on liquidity from in this trade concept. Um, but I do have a 4 hour here, which I like on ES, but I don't have a corresponding gap on NQ. There's also one up here on ES, which I don't have on NQ. You can see that NQ has couple of these green 4-hour candles in here, which ES didn't. Um, that that did the balancing to those inefficiencies before they were even made, which is why it's not as low. The retrace on NQ yet. So because the 4 hour is not giving me like exactly what I need for entry, I'm taking it down to the 1 hour. 1 hour to me looks very, very prime. To me, when I see a good setup, it just like I find that higher time frame that just paints the picture perfectly. Uh, this is doing that for me. So you can see that. Let me mark it over here as well. So this gap here would be our new day opening gap. So we got a new day opening gap lower on both indices, made a low. NQ retraced to exactly equilibrium of this range, high to low on the 1 hour, retrace right into equilibrium, like on the tick, and then retraces, makes a new lower low. No SMT here. This made a lower low. It did not reach equilibrium, but with it being overall the weaker index, that makes sense to me. The stronger index made it to equilibrium. This one didn't. So my eyes are here for shorts. What I'm wanting to see now, even though we do already have a 1 hour, even though we do already have a tap on this 1 hour fair value gap, and I usually like to play fair value gaps off the initial tap. But I think in this situation, uh, because we're leaving the Asia high there on both indices and it's open, we're starting London extremely close to that. What I would like to see for lower is a sweep of Asia low, or I'm sorry, Asia high liquidity, and then low time frame confluences to go lower. Draws on liquidity lower. Obviously, Asia low would be likely TP1. I would be taking the trade on ES. Um, I would TP into new week opening gap, or at least where we've already rebalanced it to. But really, I would be waiting at least for some chunk of my position to come off as NQ falls through all these liquidity levels. Because if I get the reversal from here and this ticks down to make a lower low, I believe that I think it's gonna swipe all of these. And I think us leaving this like this during Asia is just giving me more confidence in this trade. We left it by 34 points on NQ, 3 lows that ES is already taken out. I think it's very high probability that we get something like this. Now, we want to look at the opposite, right? What in the opposite respect, we're getting, we push through this and then, we don't get, confluences to go lower. And then that would drive up into this potentially, but I probably would not. I'm 90% sure I wouldn't even take the long here. If it did go up from here, I would expect it to just be a kind of an up leg for lower into New York Open. All right. Patience pays. So let's be patient. Brand new 4-hour candle here. It is starting bullish, which is what we would want to see. That's also something I didn't note. We're starting a new 4-hour candle now. So what I would want it to do is to get my Asia high sweep. I would want to see the the 4-hour candle open higher, giving me ultimately just the high wick of the 4-hour candle, and then essentially the manipulation of the candle, the bit of the candle going in the opposite direction of the move, the true move of the candle. I would want that to be higher to then show me a lower closing 4-hour candle down into my draws on liquidity. So those are the two things I need to align right now. We do have a check mark already, 4 hours opening bullish, right? We want it to have the open, high, low, close uh, forming to it. We want it to take Asia high or an SMT at Asia high. That would be even more interesting actually. So we'll see. I'm gonna put some alarms on these highs just to make sure I don't miss them. Taking a bunch of these things down from the Ninja Trader thing competition. I want it a little before it sweeps. There's not much of a wick for the 4 hour there. Want to see more of a wick. Man, London session's rough. I'm getting old, man. All right, I'm gonna go make me some coffee. I'll be back in just a second. See these highs get ran real quick. Let's see these highs get ran real quick. Yeah. I'm giving this like 217. I'm gonna give it at least an hour, and if that thing's just bouncing around, I'm gonna call it. Let's see here. ES is 4 hours hanging on, and Q's is not. Do you have anything on like the super low time frame that this could bounce? Hmm, not really. We need this thing to hold. Yeah, thing to hold bad. We want this thing to push. So 4 hour open right here. We want this thing to push, sweep, and flip. And then our 4 hour candle looks like this. And I'm scared that if this uptrend doesn't hold, then this could just tank from here, which really wouldn't give me my entry that I want. Hmm. So 1 hour's already been filled. It's 1.5. It's 1 o'clock. Hold it on both. Hmm. I like that wick. Now bounce. Wow, we're getting BS's. We're in the right direction. Huh. Oh, no. Mm. People mistake that trading is, you know, extremely entertaining and full of adrenaline constantly. And it's not. It can be if you're constantly going in and out of it of trades, but you're gonna get cooked eventually. This is what I want to see. Now pop. Oh, so now odds are looking at this high now. So ES is taking it. NASDAQ has not. Um, we'd want that to get taken out here. We don't want an SMT. That's going to push it lower, even if temporary. This is, I mean, what we really want to make this thing like A plus 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 is when you go and take this liquidity on that high wick of the 4 hour and that manipulation wick of the 4 hour candle, and it's a very impulsive move in this case up because we're going down, but down if we're going up. If it's very impulsive, if it especially bullish, if it sits there and works its way up the uptrend, higher, low, higher, high, or higher, high, higher, low, higher, high, higher, low. It sits there and grinds it out. To me, that's not as high ranked. If it's impulsive, it's usually the market going directly after the liquidity to run it and to get reverse. At least in my back testing numbers. That's what I want to see. So I don't want to see this thing start playing around and start making real structure into this. I want London to start and I want the H4 candle to start. Okay, it's accumulated a little bit, not too worried about that. I want this thing to rip very aggressively up to Asia high. Oh man. 5 minutes left on this 15-minute candle. Maybe we get an SMT, but to me, this SMT is a little backwards. NQ on the high time frame is the stronger, more bullish index. I would expect for a bearish S&T at the high, the stronger index taking it, but maybe we get something different. Now it's looking pretty bullish. We need this 15 to get past this high on NQ. Good, 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 S&P. That a boy. Look at that impulsivity. I love it. I love it. All right, got past, cleared this high. No SMT. Great, 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 great. Let's go ahead and clear out this alarm. We'll clear this one too since we're watching it. 3 minutes left on this 15-minute candle. Maybe the next 15-minute candle can give us a sweep, the high wick of it. 15-minute, next 15-minute candle opens high, low, close, and is the first 15-minute candle downward on the leg down of the 4-hour candle. Basically, no, I'm not gonna go too deep on it. We'll get there. I guess we could start looking at what does our trade look like. So big impulsive candle, 15-minute. We'll at least have a good 5-minute gap in there. Maybe even a 15. So maybe we get in the bottom of that 15. Say if that flips, and then say we go above the high. I mean, just to there, the 1-to-1, 15-minute equal lows, 30-minute equal lows. Very interesting. So I would definitely leave this as my TP1. So, um, we could see this go all the way up to rebalance this. Got a really big 1 hour here. It's only tapped into this 15, so it's got this one open. This is a guess, a best case guess. Excuse me. This is the easiest long in the world right here. Buy stop there. What do you have to do to get one on that? Buy stop right here for 10. All right, I'd be in there. Well, I don't know. Probably wouldn't have bought that on the 1 minute. There's the 5 minute flip. We're Bam. Smack. We got some good structure popping up on the 15 for our trade. So in 3 minutes, unless this drastically changes, we're going to get us a 15-minute fair value gap to bullish fair value gap off of the candle that's doing the Asia high sweep. Mint, mint, freaking mint. Bro, anybody seeing this, man, take your freaking notepad out, bro. Use the 4 hour in your advantage. This is the move I'm expecting for the session. Look at that one move. You ain't got to scalp every up, down, up, down, up, down. Look for the one move of the session. Which way is it going to go? Where's my draws? All right, it could go to this draw here, or it could go down here to this draw. One of the two. Look at the fair value, guys. Look at the structure. What's making sense? Okay, then tie all that into how the 10 a.m. or the 2 a.m. or the 2 p.m. candle opens, New York Standard Time. It gives you, to me, it just takes a classic, I mean, that's an ICT concept as well. It is not really an ICT concept, but I mean, it's something that he talks about in ICT too. But when people think ICT concepts, they're thinking more of, fair value gap, breaker, um, inversion, fair value gap, order block, um, silver bullet. When I started lining up, because I would get my draw and liquidity right most of the time. My problem was my entry and where I understood draw and liquidity. I understood how to read the structure well. I have probably a little patience problem looking back, but I really struggle with where do I need to position myself. Some of them were very obvious, right? But on those other half of the days where it's not pretty obvious, and I feel like using the 10 a.m. candle, especially in London, the 2 a.m. or New York PM would be the 2 p.m. Using those candles to help me make sure, kind of use it as a guide to whether is my trade idea towards my draw and liquidity. Is that correct? Am I on the right side of it? Because you can have the draw and liquidity right, but have the short term move wrong, right? So, like, I have multiple 15-minute fair value gaps. If this 1 hour didn't exist and all I had was 15-minute fair value gaps to look at, I could say, all right, it could go here and I could enter short and be wrong and get stopped because all I wanted to do is hit this and then go lower, right? That happens all the time to people. It happened to me all the time. But you have to, when I started to align it to the 4 hour candles, uh, how it's forming, it helps set me up for that session move, which is going to be usually most of or a chunk of the extension of that 4 hour candle that overlaps those sessions. All right, new 15-minute candles opening now. All right, here's our trade. Not forcing it, not guessing. We drew this out before like right when the session was opening. Full confidence. So they both swept. So I'm going to go with the assumption ES is the weaker index. Just looking at the overall high time frame, how much lower it's already retraced. I like the draws on NQ much better, but I think both of them to Asia low is a good trade. All right, so let's start framing this up. So if we flip this, we go one to right there. So do some math here. So I took 500, took half off there. Yeah, I could do that. Okay. And then moving on to, yeah. Just seeing this message. So we're looking for, uh, since we just swept Asia high, I would want to see I want to see reversal from here is the trade I want into all these draws on liquidity. So if we peak at the 4 hour, on both. So we do have an SMT here, right? So um, right, that's a bullish showing a bullish reversal. But this SMT disappears if NQ sweeps these lows because ES, those lows are up here to ES. So ES is much lower than NQ. So I do see that SMT. There that can support us to go higher, right? But these being clustered up, to me, that's like kind of an obvious thing. And even though ES is much lower, it still has a cluster of it here. So I could actually mark this probably as a relative equal low to this previous week low. You got a new week opening gap down here that it hasn't filled. It's only gone to here, so it's got all this that's unfilled. Now again, this is a bullish market. I'm not a big fan of I go short when it makes sense. To me, this makes sense. I usually lean long bias though most days. So and then also part of the trade would be this the 4 hour candle started at 2 a.m. New York time. So it's 3 now. So this 4 hour candle's been running for 1 hour now, right? How I would want that candle to form would be 4 hour opens here and then pushes higher, sweeps Asia high here, which it has, and now reverse happens, and this is just left as the wick. and the 4 hour then extends, and you have some kind of 4 hour candle like that. That's essentially what I would want. So I'm kind of tying in what makes sense in kind of the ICT structure of it, like the structure on top of the fair value gaps and inefficiencies, draw on liquidity, and then I'm also saying on a four hour candle formation, how would I want to see that form in order for this trade to work out? How I would want to see that form is it to open higher, manipulate higher, give me the high wick of the 4 hour candle, sweep Asia high, give me my liquidity sweep, and then on the lower time frame, I see some inversion of a fair value gap. What my eyes are drawn to automatically is this 15-minute. Sometimes waiting on a 15-minute to go inverse, you can wait a little long and miss the move. But I think this thing's got a pretty long ways to run. So that's what I was actually just looking at. Um, I mean, if I wait for the 15 to flip, then I mean, I still have a good bit of runway. Even just the Asia low on both of them. But, leave myself a few runners to see if all this can get hit. That's my framework now. But we'll see. This is looking good to me. This is looking very good to me. I need this to get weaker. But sometimes with these draws on liquidity, like you can have, if you're, I've had most success finding my draws on liquidity on the high time frame. I love the 4 hour chart. That's just like it makes sense to me. I don't know, it just kind of clicks the way that I guess I see it. Um, this to me sticks out. It's not that far away. Bunch of built up orders probably under there. Yeah. And ES has already swept those. So that's these up here. So so what do they need to do in order to get this? They need buyers in the market right now. So I was hoping that they would push it up impulsively through Asia high. And look at this, 2 a.m. right here, kind of chopped for the first 30 minutes, and then you get a big extension up. You're sweeping Asia high. I mean, these 50-minute candles tell the story. Four hour candle opens, accumulate, manipulate, and then distribute. That's my that's my framework. Now I just gotta stay awake to see this thing play out. And I would be looking to take shorts on ES over NQ simply because it's weaker on the high time frame. Its sell off is um, much deeper than Nasdaq's. But in this little leg up, ES has been more strong. I mean, it swept it and kind of kept going. Nasdaq, took it out and it hasn't even closed above Asia high. So maybe there's argument to take shorts over here. It would be the same framework. I'd probably try to, depending on how tight I could get my stop, I might want to scale some out at these equal lows on the 15 here and here. Maybe as a small scale out, TP2 Asia low, and then hold a runner or two and try to take some of all that out. But that may be, in New York session. That's the problem with using the 4 hour or the daily really, is you can be right for the day, but you sneak in here in London session and you're a little early to the full move of the day, and you just get into the idea a little early and you get freaking wrecked. And later, by the end of the day in US time, you were right. You just, should have waited to New York session to try to get that trade. So I try to be pretty careful in London session. It can move it's known for London manipulation, right? So it's basically known to run in the opposite direction of the move of the day. So you got to be careful with it. But if you get rolling with it, it could do well for you. This is not really what I want to see. So we do have just something to point out. So earlier, when I was looking at kind of going into London session, I drew the this to show equilibrium, right? So hooking it off this low here, not considering this, I'm saying before this happened, up to this high, this sell-off leg, here's your 50%. Look where your Asia high is. It basically rebalanced it perfectly, made a lower low, come back, sweep the high that everyone's, using out of this fair value gap to then send it lower. So that makes sense. Over here, you can see ES, again, it was weaker, so it didn't really bother me that it did not actually rebalance into equilibrium before sending it lower. So now we are getting, an equilibrium tap, which is a, continuation confluence in itself. So that's okay. I mean, I would obviously rather a drastic, quick reversal so I can go to bed, but the idea is still alive. And I mean, I always do look at the opposite way, right? Like, what would the opposite look like? I mean, this is the only high time frame draw I see, the high of New York PM session yesterday. I mean, you do have previous day high way up here, but just saying for London session, if if we push through this 1 hour fair value gap and inverse it, um, you could look at something like this into these highs, under some higher low or some fair value gap in this kind of push up to invert that fair value gap. That would be the bullish scenario. Again, I'm leaning more bearish though. So this 1 hour is flipped back bearish. We got it just started, so we're basically 15 minutes into that 1 hour. So really all we got to do now is to see, do we get some weakness from here? We got to see some clues to that this thing won't actually wants to roll over at this point. The waiting game, the sitting on your hands part of this game. I used to hate this part of it, but now it like it makes when I'm very patient and I just like snipe that perfect entry on that, that 1 out of 20 trade or so where it's just perfect. It just makes that feeling feel so much better when you've, waited for it and you saw it and you envisioned it, you waited it out, it played out and unfolded right in front of you. And, you take it, you're right. That's like that's like peak dopamine to me. And Q's giving a pretty nice response. I'm actually kind of again, ES is the weaker index because it's much lower on the high time frame. It's sold off more than in Q. But just in the last like hour, NQ's definitely seemed a bit weaker. So I want this 15 to go inverse. That would give us our Asia high sweep targeting Asia low, and then uh, higher time frame draws underneath that. That gives us a 4 hour open here, open, manipulate up, sweep Asia high, reverse, giving me the high wick or the manipulation wick on a bearish 4 hour candle. If I'm if if this is all right, then that 4 hour candle's got to be bearish. So I would, if everything continues to play, this will this up move will just simply be my wick to the 4 hour, the 2 a.m. candle. I need ES to get get a little weaker. I can already tell that it's going to be one of these that, and this is a problem that, people that I don't even, it's not even an ICT thing. It's really just trading in general, right? Anyone trying to trade these indexes where whether you do ICT or support and resistance or whatever, you have one of these flipping that zone and the other one's not, or you have one bouncing and the other one's not. And in this case, I believe we're going to flip the 15 over here inverse, and then this one's still going to be, holding it or hasn't tapped it yet. And we're going to have to make a decision. Is this flipping enough to give us confidence in the move, or do we, want to wait until they both go inverse? Obviously, ideally, I would like both of them to go inverse on a fair value gap that they have. I kind of call it what they have in common, meaning the fair value gaps on the same time frame. It's no, it's not going to be like the exact size, but it's off the same move. I mean, it's the same exact candle placement. Like for example, if we look at the 4 hour right now, we have a 4 hour fair value gap here on ES, but we don't have one here on NQ. So obviously that would be like an example of not in common. When I'm using an inverse 90% of the time to enter a trade, even if I'm down much on a much lower time frame than this, which I will go to a much lower time frame once this 15 starts to get flipped. Um, I will Hold on. This is beautiful. So one thing, side note here, as I'm seeing this, one thing that gives you confidence in using when you're using the higher time frame candles, how they're forming, and as like just an added uh to kind of check your direction. I'm right, even if I'm right 90% of the time on what the draw and liquidity is for that day, where is it aiming for that day? What high, what low, what maybe daily fair value gap, something something that direction that's giving you kind of your bias. Um, using the high time frame candles to make sure that your timing is right, going to that direction. If that makes sense, right? Like you can have the draw right, look at it in London session, and I'm like, I'm sitting here staring. I got all these lower draws. I want that now. It may not give it to you in this session. This thing may run higher and then give you, uh, the setup off of the 10 a.m. candle or the 2 p.m. candle or what maybe one of the hourly candles in New York AM session. The 11 a.m. hourly candle. One of those will give you. One of those has to really kind of sponsor that move if you're gonna reverse and go take those draws out. You got to have some big hourly candles more than likely, right? So if you just catch one of those, you're aligning that the direction and time are together with you. That's how I think of it. You can take a peek here at the 5, and so the 5 minute fair value gap is basically in the same spot. It's overlapping it. It's already flipped 1 5 minute here, retapping it, push lower. All right, so it's tapped to 15 over here. We don't want to see these candles start flipping back bullish for sure. We got 4 minutes left on this 15 minute. We need it to hold bearish. ES is holding us up. Hey Rambo, how, what trading concepts do you use? Type it in the chat. You trade New York session. Yeah, I trade New York session too. So really what I do is I'll if I'm still up for London, I can basically look at the chart and kind of put together what happened in Asia. I don't trade New York PM too much. maybe 10% of days or something, I'll take a PM trade, but um, I can usually look and see, am I going to play off that 4 hour candle? So in this case, the 2 a.m. candle, if I'm still up, I can pretty much look like, all right, what would I want that 4 hour candle to do off the start to kind of, play out my move that I see. And if I don't see that happening, then I call it and go to bed. If I don't really see anything that jumps off the page, I won't even bother with London. But today I looked at it and I pretty quickly came up with this idea and right at two, the 4 hour candle started and it, accumulated, popped up, swept Asia high, good manipulation. It's now reversing. We got clear draws lower. I think shorts are a very good trade. To me, this is A plus to my trading. This is my what is your ideal strategy? What I'm describing, like using time or like using the candle formation to kind of match your direction. I think that it's overlooked. Like people look at they call it CRT, candle range theory, and from what I see at least, when people talk about that, they talk about it in the sense of like, here's your 4 hour candle. Uh, they'll talk about it like this, like if this is your 4 hour candle for your last 4 hour candle, and then on the lower time frame, if you sweep the low, then you would long up to the high. That I see that a lot with candle range theory. I don't know if it's not candle range theory what I'm doing technically. That's kind of what made me start to study how, that, but really I'm just using the like how the candle is forming in line with, you know, sweeping liquidity and targeting liquidity. And I don't really I try to limit all the ICT stuff I use. I try to keep it to a limit. I usually just, look at the higher time frame for value gaps to kind of understand, overall direction, where we, could reverse from. And I like getting my main liquidity targets from the 4 hour. Um, that's pretty much me in a nutshell. I've tried to really cut back how much I was trading and be more picky with the things I'm actually trading. Because the more I refine my setup, the more um, learn more and get better at this, the less I'm going to find setups to match all of my criteria. Obviously, you can get too much criteria, but I think if you have it, good understanding and the all the criteria you're adding to your strategy is doing you justice and not hurting you. I think even though it makes you more kind of picky to what you're taking, um, I think it's good for you. This is my second account because I blew the first one and I'm not professional yet in trading. Oh man, I don't consider myself professional either. I don't think that's the wave, man. Like if you want my opinion, like people that want to trade, like they should focus on uh like not having to be so involved with the world. Like if you make your own money from the internet, like you can kind of detach from being, dependent on companies to give you jobs and that whole aspect, that freedom that you get, that's what should drive people. What can I do with that time? What can I do with even if I don't make $1 more from trading than I can from whatever job I would be working, even if they're the exact same, you know, just being able to have freedom of where I am when I work, you know, I can be on a trip, I can be at home, I can, the freedom that that offers, that alone, and the time, you trade a couple of hours for this session, a couple of hours for this session. It's not like working, 8, 9, 10 hour days every single day. So that to me is the main focus. And I think the more you focus on that and less on like making certain dollar amounts or percent amounts, like some, professionals, they're doing this for, other people, obviously. So every percent, every uh, gain and loss is super relevant to them. But I think for people like us, the more you detach from it, the better it's gonna serve you. Just think about like how simple my life will get if I learn this skill. You know, make it more about that. But yeah, I think this is something that's not used that much with like like how the candle's forming. So something to point out with that though, like you can get trapped in this, right? So if we take a look at this, so I have this on my chart, so I don't have to mark it, but so this is the 2 a.m. 4 hour open here. Once this opened, it went lower. At a time it went higher, then lower, and then we got this big push up, right? At a, you could call this the low wick of a bullish 4 hour candle, right? So it can trip you up when it kind of goes chops up down right off the start of it. I try not to really look at too much at that. I want to see like what is the real move of this thing, the first 30 minutes to an hour of it starting. And you can clearly see that's bullish, right? This is 5 minute candles. So this is 3 o'clock, first hour is here. So definitely bullish within that first hour. Another thing that tells a story to me is like if if it did if it did open up lower like this into a fair value gap that has not been tapped before, like see this one's been tapped, this thing's been rebalanced. So really this 1 hour fair value gap's not even really relevant to me after that. So if it would have went down into something tapping or sweeping liquidity, that might change my mind on this. If that makes sense? Because then I would see, okay, it did manipulate. It just didn't manipulate in the way that I wanted it to, in the direction I wanted it to. But this was that could be the manipulation of the lower wick of a bullish candle, right? Obviously, we were banking on it being a bearish candle opening, manipulating higher to make its high wick. But I think it, if you put that in, uh, if you overlap that thinking, you can't use just that alone. That's not good enough to just use alone. But if you put that thinking on top of, you know, reading the structure, understanding the higher time frame, whether you want to do that support and resistance or ICT concepts like I do, um, but you definitely can't just use candle formation as your bias. But again, the best way I can describe it for me is if I have the draw and liquidity right, but I'm not entering at the right time, I'm still going to get stopped out unless I just have a really wide stop, right? I have to get the draw and liquidity right, but I also have for the day or for that session, but I um also have to get the timing right. So everything else I use ICT for, but to get the timing to that move, I use how the at least a 1 hour candle. If not, I like the 4 hour candle more. I mean, it's the same thing, but just higher time frame. So now we got little weakness showing. We need this thing to reject from this 5 minute here. I'll go ahead and mark this out. 5 minute bearish fair value gap there. ES is just freaking ripping, man. So now we do have the SMT at the highs. What do I think about TJR? I mean, he's a number of years younger than me, so I think you know he's a little more wild than I am. Not just because of the money. I'm just saying like personality wise. But I mean, he's funny, and I think he's brought a lot of uh a lot of attention to the trading world, which I think is cool. And uh, I think what it comes down to is at some point you have to accept what you know is good and like be comfortable with it, whether that's through you know time trading it, back testing it, combination of both, and where you detach from watching these other people trade. Not saying you can't, you can learn from it, and being in there isn't necessarily a bad thing. But if you're dependent on another person to say go, to say sell, to say buy at an exact moment, that's great when you're getting started. So you can understand, okay, these people are showing patience. They're waiting. I see them waiting an hour plus just to, get into one trade. You can see a lot of uh, uh, good habits that, you know, these traders have, what kind of setups they're taking, while they're taking them. That's all great. But at some point you gotta like separate and start executing on your own to when you feel I think you pass a level of comfortability with it. And because if you don't, you're always going to be dependent on that person to be streaming, to be whatever. Like at the end of the day, you want this skill to be able to see this on your own, right? Like so, um, watching not specifically TJR, but there have been other uh some him, yeah, but others too that I've learned things from. So I'm all for it, but I think like I said, at some point you have to rip off your training wheels and like get in there alone, and or at minimum be in a trading group and don't take what they're taking necessarily, and take your own setups as you see fit. Um, some people can't do that though. If they sit in those groups, it's kind of hard for them to truly work on their or do their setup alone. So that'd be my only thing. But I think he makes trading fun and exciting. And there's a bunch of new people in this world. So I think that's cool. But I think you know I think that's my one thing about the uh really any streamer, even me, right? Like I think everyone needs to just remember in the back of their head, like my goal is to do this on my own, or at least be able to. Um, So this is looking great to me, especially on NQ. Um, but would you go long in the 5 minute FEG if inverse on NQ? This one right here, this bearish one. I mean, yeah, ES didn't even make that thing. No, I wouldn't go long because that's just fighting all the biases I just went over that this is following for my main idea. And now I have, and this is giving me the SMT. That this honestly, I honestly couldn't play this out any better for shorts right now, unless this thing just, maybe the only thing I can see standing in the way of me taking a trade and us having a really good trade here is if it just goes and sweeps these lows and then the uptrend continues. Where really what we want is to get underneath this 15-minute. Why is this important? Yes, it's a 15-minute. Yes, that's bullish. Yes, we want to inverse that. But even more importantly, not more importantly, but just to add context to that, we would be flipping the 4 hour now, going back bearish, right? We're underneath the origin of the 4 hour candle, right underneath this fair value gap. Um, so that's where all the eyes are. That's the only thing that I can think at this point it's worked out perfectly, right? We opened, accumulate, manipulated higher, impulsively swept Asia high, even gave us an SMT. It's showing us NQ is the weaker pair off this SMT, so I'm going to follow that because I've been saying that it's been looking weaker. So I would be taking this away, and we would solely be looking for NQ shorts. Yes, ES is weaker on the higher time frame. It's lower down, but right now, and this is at least a 15. It's not a 1 hour. A 15, 30-minute SMT off Asia high. I'm going to go off of what it's telling me is the weaker index in that moment, rather than looking at it from a multiple day standpoint. So this would just be to these relative equal lows. So I have these marked over here. Relative equal low here. And this isn't like where I think we would go lower than this. Uh, I'm just gonna mark this as like a minor relative equal low. I'm calling it minor because usually relative equal lows I'm pointing out are like at least 1 hour, and these are not 1 hour. It's just that one wick on the 1 hour. So 15-minute, it's worth noting then. So got some relative equal lows here on both overlapping. I like that. As maybe a first scale off. I'm not even really call it TP1. I'd call it a scale off just to put some profit in our pocket. Probably could go break even on the trade at that point, and then we would want to run it into Asia low. That may take all the way to the 6 a.m. candle, right? Now, once I take risk off and I scale some out, I'll just let it run while I sleep and just let it do its thing. So we could probably take our like a 90% off at Asia low. And then if you wanted to, you could maybe hold you like a micro, 2 micros, and see if you can pop these lows um, before New York AM. Because if you look at the daily right now, right? We would ascend, we would have the opportunity to still have a bullish daily candle if they wanted it to be bullish. It would just have the long wick on it, sweeping this out and then popping back up. If they want to take it back up, right? I think that that would be fair to assume. I like to say, I like to ask myself, if this move happens, can, what would it look like for the Bulls to still win the day, right? And then what would it look like if for the Bears to win the day? Meaning which way is the daily candle? So we would probably look to hold maybe this SMT high for our stocks. Or I know you said that you trade New York AM more, but 4 a.m. is a uh pretty common time for the move of Asia. I'm sorry, the move of London. Reason I wouldn't go long off the fair value gap here is just because, my 4 hour candle doesn't really have a lower wick. It's very small. So it didn't really manipulate much. It didn't manipulate into any fair value gap, or sweep any liquidity. So to me, that's not a very clear wick of the 4 hour. Usually that wick is going to take liquidity, it's going to hit a fair value gap, that reversal is going to happen from something, some catalyst. Um, the lower wick on that 4 hour to me didn't really touch anything. So it's right. So here's the 4 hour start. So here's your wick, a low wick of the 4 hour right now. We can actually mark this. Like current H4 low. How long have you been trading, Rambo? Almost 5 months. That's cool, man. Well, welcome to the trading world. I started trading in 2020, but I didn't take it like serious um until about probably 2 years ago. And then I started getting like more trying to work on my discipline, trying to, find the kind of one strategy that I wanted to use every day. Um, that kind of stuff. So you're having issues with like your not even really your emotions, but like your physically like shaking and stuff. Yeah, I think what you have to do is like there's a couple ways you can do it that um you can, you know, when you put a stop loss on, you basically need to like write that money off. You gotta, it's a business expense, right? To your business. That you gotta think of it like that. Otherwise you'll start like closing things too early. Just because something moves against you doesn't mean you're wrong. Especially when you're looking at 1 hour and 4 hour structure. Most of the time when you're doing that and you're getting your direction and stuff in those high time frames, you're not going to get your entry down to the minute detail where you literally don't have any drawdown. I mean, sometimes you do, right? I mean, we all get those every once in a while. Most of the time, you're going to have some drawdown. Um, and I feel like for me, at least, the more I just write that money off or it, as already as a loss, the more you know, the less I like worry and worried about it during it. It, I think I think you being in your first year, my advice to you is like if you're feeling those emotions like that from what you're trading, you may be trading too high of size. So, take half of that or there is no rush, right? A lot of people get in this world and they want to fix all their financial problems and, you know, retire their family from working and all these great goals to have. Totally fine to have these goals, but like they want them in a time span that's very short. And the market does not, it does not reward people looking for it now. It rewards people that are patient. And I've had to learn that, myself. So you got to, zoom out and instead of looking at what can I do by this end of this year, think of like, you know, stretch it out at least another year or so. And, you know, every month or two, you'll look back at 2 months before then and you'll say, man, I've learned so much, right? Even though I'm not getting the results today that I want in the end, I'm still way better than I was 2 months ago. So like keep that stuff for yourself where you can go look at it. Like I used to see pictures on my phone of old like charts and stuff that I had marked up, but um and I would look at it now and I was like, what was I doing? Like I'm so much better now. So I think that's good to see to kind of keep your mind focused on like I am improving in this, even though I'm not maybe hitting the dollar value that I'm trying to make every month or whatever. Maybe I'm not there yet, but I am way further ahead than I was, in the 2 months ago or 6 months ago or whatever. I think the more you focus on the progress you've made and just like tell yourself like I'm going to learn for one more day and just do that every day and kind of care less about the results and more about like treating it almost like a game. Like I want this to be like a game that I'm really good at understanding, if that makes sense. Take the money out of it as much as you can. It sucks because this is the one thing that your results are directly tied to a dollar value, right? Like if you go to a job, yes, like you have a paycheck, right, that you're getting, but it if I do a really good job one day at work and then maybe like I gave half effort the next day, my check's gonna be the same. Obviously, I might get fired at some point, but that's not my point. Like you're not really your performance isn't really tied directly to a dollar value. In this, it's directly tied to it. If I do good on one day, it's going to be green, right? If I do bad, it's going to be red. But you kind of have to learn that it's a probability game. I'm not going to be right every time. You know, no one has the foolproof method. And if they're telling you they do, they're lying to you. And everyone is working with somewhere between, you know, 50 to 80% win rate, realistically, in my opinion. Um, Everyone's somewhere in there, and they wisely manage their risk and set up good RR trades, meaning your risk to reward on your trades to what your win rate is. Like doing that math. The people that manage that well do really well in trading. People that don't, that's that's usually why. If you would make a short position now, where would you put TP? I would probably do something like this. So looking at, let's talk about it. So I'm on a fresh funded fresh funded accounts actually. So from Alpha Futures. So I definitely don't want to bet the house. I'm not on evals. If this is an eval, if you're on an eval, I would take I do evals very aggressively. So I would go like if you have a daily loss limit. I mean, if you're trying to pass it quickly, don't let me mess you up. If you've been grinding one eval for weeks and you're trying to inch it to the finish line, but I try to do my evals in like 2 or 3 trades. If you're doing that, I would put on, obviously, you need more size, but if you're shaking from your size, like I said, you probably need to go down. So, um, I have fresh funded account. I got 2,000 drawdown, so I don't want to do anything crazy on my first trade on the account. So I would be looking probably for like a $300 to $350 risk. If I type that in, 350, so that's almost 4 micros on NQ for this stop loss that I'm showing with the red box. Let's see, 300 will put me down to 3. So I would be looking at probably 3 to 4 micros um, on MNQ. I do all my charting on the main tickers, NQ and ES. But then when I take a trade, I'll actually pounce, quick to the MNQ chart and enter it in there. Um, anyway, so that would be stop loss would be right at this SMT high. And then I would want obviously the 15 to go inverse. That would then hopefully flip the 4-hour candle bearish, which has been our objective, one of our objectives for the session. And then that would push us lower. What I'd be targeting lower on the 15-minute and the 30-minute. You have relative equal lows right here. I would probably try to scale some off. So if I had 4 contracts, I'll put this up as maybe like an example. So if I was doing quantity, Forex, M and Q, I would probably do something like this. Why can't I move this? Oh, there we go. All right, so if I had quantity, if I sold 4 there, I'd probably scale 1x here, scale out of 1x, and then at Asia low, I would call this my official like TP1, and I would do 2x here. Not to confuse you, I'll just call it TP2. I don't want to confuse people. I say this is not really a TP because this is like, to me, this is definitely going to hit. This is just to get me some profit just in case I get stopped at break even. But we'll call it. I usually don't take but like 10% off usually here, but I only have 4 contracts, so I'm kind of forced to do 25%. And then I would hold a runner, and then I would hold 1x as a runner. to try to hit these. And I would kind of hold this into probably at least, I mean, this would definitely have to run into New York session for all this to get hit. Just leaving that stop loss at break even and just letting it run. I trade micro E-mini. I wouldn't trade the E-mini. Oh, micro. Okay. I trade the mic. What's your drawdown on your 25K? Is it 1,000? Is that your what's your max drawdown and what's your drawdown per day? Do you have a daily cap on it? It's looking really freaking good. 12 minutes left on the candle. It's 5 minutes. Definitely gonna inverse. It's $1,000 max drawdown. I don't think there's a daily. Okay. It depends on how aggressive you want to be. So two. Let's take a peek here. I'll do some math for you. So, this is the ES. Here we go. So over on the micro chart, here's our 15-minute that we're playing off of. So you would have a sell limit of 2. We got in ideally there. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't want to tell you wrong, but I mean, you're only risking, you know, risking about 15% of your drawdown on the 2 micros. If you only have 2 micros, I would probably do one at what I'm calling TP1 and one at TP2. And then in New York session, look for it to pop up. If we get this in New York session, look for some kind of manipulation pop up to then dump into those, and maybe you catch your second trade of the day like that. If you don't want to put on more risk than the 2 and get it in now and just hold it till later, that's totally fine. So we may get, so this is good. So now we're flipping the 4-hour. Our 4-hour candle is now bearish. Look at that. That's exactly what we want. Look at that. Big manipulation off the 4-hour candle. And that gave us our Asia high sweep. Will you enter a trade now in London session? Yes. I I want I'm right. I mean, I'm probably about to enter here shortly. I would probably say within the next 15-minute candle. Once this 15-minute closes, it's got 10 minutes left. We would officially inverse this 15-minute bullish fair value gap. This is still left, but I at minimum want ES to, get down into here. We may look at taking the trade before ES has actually flipped it on the 15 and just look at the flip of this 5-minute instead. Because what we run into, let me go ahead and mark this, because what we might run into is if NQ inverses it off this 15-minute candle, our next 15-minute candle would open, I would hope, and then pop up a little. We get in the entry, right? And then it starts to go down like we want it. Before this big move down, it may flip the 5-minute here, but not flip the 15-minute, because this is going to be lagging probably one 15-minute candle behind NQ. NQ's flipping this now. This is just now, getting in. It hasn't even touched the 15 yet, right? So we may see that delay. And we don't want to, we don't want NQ to just sit here and run our TP1. I mean, I would still take the trade even if it did take this. This isn't big enough for me to revert from my idea. My idea is made on the 4 hour. But I do think this is in this ideal setup I put up. This was a 1-to-1 scale off at a good 15-minute relative equal low. So yeah, I think the 159 risk for you. Now that's if we get it here, right? So I'm looking for a short trade that I mean I want it to be. So you're looking for short trades. Well, think about it like this, right? Like, yeah, I get you. I'm not really looking to sit in trades for like multiple hours. I usually the most I usually am going to be doing is like taking 1 hourly candle, like the extension of it. Um, yeah, so that's pretty consistent with me. Most of mine run pretty, 20, 30 minutes. That's probably accurate. But I will hold runners now. And what I mean by that is my stop losses at break even. I've already taken 80, 90% of my position off, right? And I'm, letting one or two of my contracts just run to see if some extremes get hit. I will do that, but I won't like sit and watch it while it does it. I'll just, call it a night and get some sleep and wake up and see how they did. Because at the end of the day, what it's only 10% of my position, so or 20%, right? So for me to enter, I need so my entry criteria is flipping this 15-minute fair value gap that both ES and NQ have in common. We look at the 15-minute on both of them. You can see this fair value gaps in this off the same candle, right off the manipulation leg. We can't look at just like a 1 minute inverse on this leg down and say that that's good enough. I mean, this is good to our position. Now we needed this thing to clear. And then when this next 15-minute candle spawns in 6 minutes, I would expect this thing to start pulling back now, leaving some sort of wick here. And then at this starting the next candle, hopefully, maybe somewhere in here, that would ultimately be a bearish candle, would start bullish into maybe a 3-minute fair value gap in here or 5-minute off this big impulse candle, and we could enter off of that. So I'm not quite there. I'm a few minutes from that. I need this 15 to close, and then I would be looking at my options for entry on this leg, assuming I don't get a retap of the 15-minute inverse fair value gap. If this goes inverse, you know, a good fair amount of times you will get, a retap of it. But this thing's extended a lot now, so I'm less likely to worry so much about that. It's showing me, it's showing me the direction it wants. So I would then settle. Let's see what we have. So if I look at the 5-minute, here's my last high, here's my last low, here's my equilibrium. So I have this 5-minute here that maybe it wants to, when the next 15-minute candle opens, maybe it starts, pushes into this, and then we would take it out off of that. So what you see in the chart, that's important. You can yeah, I will. Yeah, so we want to we when we're looking for a fair value gap to look to see it go inverse to get in a trade, we want to make sure that we're not using too low of a time frame. You want the fair value gap that kind of makes sense. Like if you look at the 15-minute structure and you had this up leg right here, that 15-minute, I mean, yeah, you had a 5-minute here, a 5-minute up here. You could have gotten in off this 5-minute. You had a 5-minute over here that was bullish, inversed, retap, and went lower. And yes, you would have got a much tighter stop loss, but this thing could have just tapped this 15-minute bullish and then ran, right? So you want to be knowledgeable of what's the highest time frame gap, fair value gap on the leg that I'm looking for that inverse on. So that was why I picked the M15. If I go up to the M30, I don't have that fair value gap. So the 15 is the highest one on the manipulation leg, the highest fair value gap. Now, obviously, I didn't want this to sell off this freaking much, right? This is not very ideal. Ideally, this would have just inverted somewhere like right here, retapped it, and then we got this extension. But I can't control it. So this TP1 did already get hit. So we're gonna have to adjust this. I'm just gonna go ahead and take this off of that chart. I'm going to keep it on my ES chart over here. So now look, this is good, right? Don't be discouraged just because this went a little bit without us. Don't that's how you get killed in this market. You can't chase it. For me, this is not a bad spot to be in. We need this thing to go inverse. If this goes inverse, we got 1 minute 28 seconds. This goes inverse, we're about to enter. Yep, here it comes. We want this to inverse. And then what are we looking for? Do we have a fair value gap that we can look, a bearish fair value gap that we can look to tap into on this big impulsive move? No, because it's one candle, right? So we've got to zoom in and go lower. Okay, so what do we see? Well, I see a 5-minute here. Let's see a 5-minute. Once this candle closes, there'd be a 5-minute here. So this next 15-minute candle, the top wick could hit one of these and then give us our reversal. And then what we would do is we would take probably our scale out, our TP1, we would probably put at this low. Wherever this low actually ends up being would probably turn into TP1 and stop loss to break even. All right, here's our candle. We got to be quick on our feet here. So we did inverse this. So this is now, all right, get ready to rock here, dude. All right, M15 flipped. This one definitely freaking flipped. So now these are inversed. All right, so trade is on. We got 2 5-minutes that are opened. If we look at the range, this is our 50% of the range right here. This is equilibrium. Let's look at the 5-minute over here. This recent high, I guess, is that. So we want maybe ES pushes back into the 15-minute, but we buy in Q. Don't let me confuse you on that. Because it's nice when you have an inverse fair value gap to get the retap because it allows it to pull back some where you can get a better entry, right? Look, here comes ES, right? All right, you need to be ready here. So I would be running Probably something like this. And then have some runners to go even lower than this. So that for me, you could bring this stop in probably some, maybe to the 4 hour open or the top of this 15. That gives me 3. So we're going to change my quantity to 3. Yeah. I really want this thing to bounce just a little further, but we may not get it fill anything. Little 1 minute. Oh, I really like that. We really want the retap, but it may not give it to us. We may just have to take it. I don't know where I would. Mm, don't like that. I need this thing to pop. Got 2 minutes left. If this thing flips bearish, we really want it to pop. Otherwise, our risk to reward is gonna get messed up unless we target all of this down here, which isn't a bad move. I think all of it gets hit. I just don't know if it'll get hit in London. I think this Asia low is going to get hit though. I'm pretty confident in that. All right, this looks good over here. So we're pulling back in. We're getting down to that 1 minute, or sorry, that 15-minute fair value gap. So now I'm on the 1 minute. I'm way down into the microscope now. Only now, right? You sit on this 1 minute chart, you're going to see setups every 5 minutes that look good. And you're going to be chasing your tail all day. Don't do it. Only come down when like you framed out everything. We didn't even tap the 15 actually. We're one tick short. Oh, bro. Everything's flipping. Everything's flipping. Wish. How's this? Yeah, I think it's about to go. All right, sell it here. Sell it here. Why did my order reject? Oh shit, that's on NQ. All right. We're in there. We're gonna let this run. Don't pay attention to these markings on this chart. I'm redone them. So we're in at 30.90. $3.90. So we're in there. That's our entry. So TP1's definitely going to be Asia low. may get some push back up once ES hits these relative equal lows. Remember the 15-minute relative equal lows that we called out earlier? That we may get, we may get some push into some of this stuff after the sweep. That's not what we want in this current position, though. Need this thing to keep going. And then, so I'm holding 3. So I would probably take TP1. I'd probably take two here. 2 of my contracts off here. And then leave a runner and see if I can hit down into here. We don't want this to start reversing. Not that the move is wrong. I just think that it could pop us back up and then go lower. I don't think that this is the final draw on liquidity. But maybe some buy orders under here. We want it to flush through it. All right, coming up on Asia low. This thing's really running. I'm gonna go a little risk on here in my process. Not because you guys are watching me, but because this is so far from Asia low and these are so close. I think Asia low is going to be my break even point. But maybe scale 1 off there and not 2. Here's that sweep I didn't want. Need this thing to get pushed back down. Rambo, did you get in? All right, flush. You're gonna get out of Asia low. Sounds good, brother. Yeah, hey, that's honestly, man, I don't think any trader has ever gone super wrong by taking profits and not being like overly greedy. So I'm all for that, man. I'm gonna take 1 here as well. Probably gonna put it a little below. I just market buy it. See if we get an impulse. Yeah, there. All right, so I'm out there with 1, and then I'm gonna take stops for the remaining 2. Buy stop to break even and protect the capital. You want to see ES keep wanting to drive. 3 minutes left on this 15. So now NASDAQ, we got these are the lows that we want. Bam. Call that one there. That one there. And that one there. All right. I want this 15 to keep extending. I don't like that. By the way, I entered at the 15-minute inverse. Well, I mean it depends on how risky you're wanting to be, right? It depends on how you look at it. So let me say it like this. So if we look at ES was still up here. It had not flipped to 15 yet. NASDAQ, once we go back to where I have it all marked up, you know, NASDAQ flipped this 15 and went much lower. So if you know, as this thing's cooking through, buying that and assuming it's going to inverse or buying it here before ES inverse or those types of situations, sometimes they can work for you if you can get in at a very cheap buy or a cheap sell, meaning your risk to reward is, maybe if you were able to do something like this, where you were able to have a very tight stop and you could have gone all the way down here for almost a 5 risk to reward, then yeah, that makes sense. And some people, have that um, type of strategy that, they make work for themselves. What I see now is more than likely going to happen is we form these huge 15-minute fair value gaps. I believe that now we're going to tap into this fair value gap. So you may can get an additional trade here. And if that's the case, getting all out at London low was the move. And that's looking like what we're going to get here. So new 15-minute candle is just starting. This wick is going to probably take my stop out. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and close it and make sure I get out with before the fees. And then all my eyes now go to this. This is the entry. This is probably maybe even a better trade if it holds. Because again, if this is enough, we don't know, right? Here's the other side of the argument. This London low sweep, or I'm sorry, Asia low sweep is a bullish SMT. Always look at the other side too, right? And then ES being the stronger index right now, it didn't go all the way to Asia low, but it did sweep out these relative equal lows, which we had marked as a minor draw on liquidity. If that's enough liquidity to pump it higher, then it's going to inverse this 15-minute bearish fair value gap. If it doesn't, then we're bearish. Now look at that. Huge extension on the 15-minute candle into the fair value gap, and now it's rejected back. So now, honestly, I want to buy this, sell this again. Make sure that I don't have. Yeah, I want to wait. I want this 2 minute to inverse. But now we're down again on the low time frames. This looks good to me. Here's my 1 minute fair value gap that I want to use as my inversion. Oops. Isn't it? So all eyes on that. And we would get back in and we could ride the ride and take all these out and ES to target its Asia low. See what we get here. Because me personally, I don't think this is the draw, but this is why I'm very strict on protecting my capital. So anytime we take out like a noticeable liquidity pool, I'm going stop to break even, and that's why I usually will have those scale out points where it makes sense to take a little profit, take stops to break even. And even if I do that 3 or 4 times in a week, I still make a couple $100 just from those scale outs, even if none of my trades fully extend the way that I saw them extending, right? Even on a quote bad week. The only way that I'm going to lose is if I enter and it basically immediately goes against me. And that goes back to the timing thing where you may be right on direction, wrong on timing. Restring New York session. I'm in the process of um trying my best to like make time for that. Because I do work as well. So um I really want to. I got yeah, I just kind of started the channel here and on YouTube as well. So I'm gonna be I've been uh kind of making like recording my trades and stuff like that. So I'm gonna be uploading videos and stuff like of like past trades that I've done in like the last month or so to my like social medias and stuff, and then try to get to the uh, New York AM session streaming in every morning. That's my goal, but still kind of new to it. But every person that I help out with trading, um, I, they leave better than they came. So I thought that if I could just record and say out loud what I'm already thinking, then I know it will help people simplify things. But to whom listens, right? All right, so really, I just want to see the shift off of this leg. We have very bearish 1 hour candle, 4 hour candle on ES is still a little bullish, very bearish over here, which is what we were wanting. I want to see this trickle back down, flip back bearish, and show me continuation. Show me the move is not over. This big wick, I thought that was it. I thought it was going to move off of that. I'm glad I kind of took a second. So this is actually a 2 minute fair value gap now. And then over here, like I was saying, like I want to find the highest time frame, but that's also corresponding to both indices. And I ideally want both of them to inverse before I take the trade. Now you can't, like I was saying earlier, you can't always have that. Sometimes that will completely chalk your risk to reward. But you have to know if you're leaving one not inverse, one indice, you're taking a risk off of that. That is a risk. But again, if the risk to reward makes sense and you're comfortable with it, then go for it. I think that's the cool thing about trading is there's so many different ways you can do it, and I believe that there's more than one way that you can be good at it. But all people that are good at it have a couple things in common, I think. And that's more of like personal attributes about themselves, less about their strategy. Because I think, like, for the most part, like the strategies you hear about, if they weren't, if people were never successful with them, then they wouldn't really exist, right? Like, they're there for a reason. People are successful with them. It comes down to how they're managing their risk and what risk to reward they're putting on and sticking to it. And, and having a system they've proven out that they can follow and get good results with. So that's looking good. I need this thing to sell on down here. May open up a small 5 minute now, but it won't be corresponding. You want something you want when you're waiting for it to go in the opposite direction as you, like we're expecting it to go up, but we're wanting it to ultimately come back down. You want to see impulse. You want to see it strongly moving against you because that's showing that they're running this, they're liquidating people out of the market and people are falling. Bam, 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 which is giving them the buying or selling power to push it in your direction. So these big wicks like this looks great to me. Yes, I would like NASDAQ to stop dragging behind and at least tap the 15, but it being so much weaker than ES, we may not get that. We could also look at uh, the 15-minute equilibrium right here. For ES, it would be so how I'm using equilibrium is if I take a high and a low and I want it to be consecutive candles of that direction or of that, like this is the last bit bullish candle, all bearish candles. Now we're starting bullish again. I'm classifying that as my dealing range. High to low, 50% of that. If it goes into 50%, that's not telling me the opposite direction is right. Just because this goes and touches the 50% doesn't tell me that this thing's trying to reverse bullish. That it going to equilibrium and then pulling away from it, in this case, back down, is a bearish, or it can be bullish too, right? If you um, if you had, a range, a bullish range, right? Control that better. Well, I think it'll be fine. If you had a bullish range, and let's just say this is 50%, if this thing started to come down and tap this and then come back up, that's a bullish signal to you. Not to Don't take trades just because of that. Use that in other with other things. But it's kind of like being a detective, right? It's like you got to find multiple clues to tell you what it's saying. So this went into equilibrium, pushed away. That's telling me it's a continuation confluence. All right, so all eyes back on this 2 minute NQs looking like it wants it. See what happens here. Be looking at, I would probably say maybe in here by the time ES inverses. But remember, don't get sucked in this thing too early because you got all the way to Asia low over here on ES. That's totally valid. You got a ton of lows stacked up over here on the 4 hour too. Like there's really not a huge rush to get in this. It's not quite a one there. Do something like that, maybe. And first take profit. I would probably stay in this as long as until this hits Asia high. At least some runner. I don't know if we're going to sweep every one of these, but I think at least until this hits Asia low. Well, I said Asia high, sorry. Asia low, I think we could continue. Or, yeah, I appreciate it, man. You can, if you search that, I don't know what social media you're using, but if you search the Zax underscore trades like it is right here on any of the social media platforms, you can follow me and I'll post some stuff on there once I get rolling in for New York session or any time that I am going to do the New York session. But I am gonna try to get to where I'm consistent with it. Appreciate it, man. Where are you from? Have I ever heard of a payout? You're from Hungary. Oh, that's cool. That's cool, man. I haven't ever been there. I've been to Mexico and I've been to China for work. But I had a lot of fun. Had a lot of fun uh, in both places actually. But I had good people, there that were from there that kind of showed us around and made sure that helped us with like the language barriers and all of that. I'm sure it can be harder to travel internationally like that if you don't have, um, you know, people kind of taking you around. But I had a lot of fun. But that's cool, man. I always liked y'all's soccer jersey, y'all's international team soccer jerseys. Where do you I'm in the United States, in Florida. Very, very hot here. You have cousins in the USA. That's cool, man. What part of the US are they in? This is looking pretty good. I want this thing to keep falling. Stay somewhere in the west. Cool, man. Yeah, I've been out to the western states. I've never lived there. I've always uh I've kind of stayed in the southeastern region my whole life. Like living wise, not traveling. That's cool, man. I think trading's really cool because it's kind of a something you can have in common with people from all over the world. So I may run something like this in front run ES, and I'm going to be very aggressive with my stop loss. And I want to flush this low right here. I would really like to go break even at that low, just to again because I'm trading brand new funded accounts. I want this thing to flush through this 2 minute. This is now going inverse. Flush it, flush it, flush it. Oh, I like this. I like this. I'm on scale one here. Push, 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 push. I'll just take all the way to this low off this one candle. Go, go, go. I'm waiting to just buy market on one of my contracts. I really want the extension. Quick upper wick, big flip. Go. Extend, go. Push, 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 push. No, don't go back up. Need it to flip. Need it to flip and hold. Yep. Flip and hold, flip and hold, flip and hold. This is pulling back into this, maybe. I'm gonna let it do this. If it goes into this, I'm okay. I do want to have this up, ready to go. See if we get a little tap here and push down. Again for the tap. Now I need it to start pulling back. Hmm. It's thinking what it wants to do. And it's to pop on down. There we go. And we're looking for this low to get hit. And I'm gonna mark this as my TP1, even though it's not the chart I'm trading. And I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna go stop loss to break even at that low. I don't like how it's just sitting there. Now we got a little bullish SMT right here. This thing with flush. Flush. Come on. Man, it's ES that's just holding us up here, man. Still holding that SMT. This thing's got to get under this. Right now, it's an SMT here. It's not one to give it to us. I don't know. I would expect it to just fall through this. Yeah, this is shaking and baking a little much for me. Maybe it wants this 5 minute. Really want to hold it all the way through that. Um, ain't got really a choice. S&T pushes us back up into 5. All right, this is tapping this 5 minute. Let's drag this over. Now all eyes go to this. Whoops. Oh, yeah. I'm okay with having some drawdown here. I need this thing to touch and reject. Again, Rambo here, we could look at 5 minute range. Is equilibrium. So we got almost to it. Way up there. So now as I'm so this is a you use this as a experience here, man. So we're about to go maybe into a bit of drawdown here. But this the money that I'm risking, I've already wrote it off in my head. I've done the analysis. I've been patient. I believe in what I see, and I just let it ride. If it goes above this high, then I'm wrong, and it's gonna want to come all the way back and then tap this 15 that I didn't tap. I don't think so, but it doesn't have any 15-minute structure really. It's made sense. Still got a very good draw lower on ES. 4 hour looks good. Tapped in, high wick, into the 4 hour fair value gap, rejected. We just haven't got our distribution. We got it a little bit earlier here. We didn't capitalize off of it too much. We need one more leg. Should be a pretty solid trade here. It can get some wheels. All right, run it. All eyes right here. The risk comes off here, and we're guaranteed making money here. So now our SMT is at minimum. Our SMT is gone now, so that's good. The bullish SMT has been invalidated. Here comes the push. Why did you look for longs? What do you mean? When was I looking for longs? I'm gonna take one there. And then my buy stop now becomes 3. We're gonna take this to break even. Confirm. And we're gonna let this thing cook a little bit. Starting a fresh 1 hour candle. Don't really like we didn't get any wick on the 1 hour. I don't understand your question on why did you look for longs? I don't remember ever really looking for longs. I did walk through a scenario of looking like what does I believe it's going to do this, right? I thought short the whole time. But I do look at if I'm wrong, then it's going to have to do this. This is what it's going to look like if long was the move of the session, right? I need to look at both sides of that so that as I'm grabbing my clues, during the live movement of the candles, I can I can put those clues towards each one of those scenarios and say, which one is this most looking like, right? And the more eggs I put in one basket, then I start, actually being able to kind of frame it, actual trade with it. Does that make sense? Oh, buy option. So when I have this open, so I'm selling short. So this is three sell contracts. So for me to take profit on it, I have to buy it. But essentially, it's still just buying low and selling high. You're just picking your sell price before you're picking your buy price. I'm gonna take one more just to not be greedy. Take this to 2. You are getting a bit of a reversal candle over there. You mean you mean like I just like painted out what was gonna happen for like 2 hours and and I'm acting like nothing happened. When you say I didn't know I could leave a trade in that way, when you say leave, do you mean like exit the position on that last message? Take profit, yes. Yeah, so if you're shorting, if you're profiting on it going down, your take profits would be buy orders or limits or market or however you're, getting out. Like most people, they'll do a limit for, one or two or whatever, and then they'll move it on their line and then let that order sit there like this, right? I do that. But when I have so few contracts, I only had 4 contracts, I was just trying to uh, see if I could, because usually when they go through these liquidity levels, they don't go to that exact tick. They usually go through it. If it's a good sweep, they're going to go through it. So I usually like to watch the candle hit my draw and liquidity target, and I want to see it kind of tick down a few ticks underneath it. And where it stops, I'm hitting, I'm exiting there just to kind of squeeze out as much as I can. So now I'm going to go ahead and buy one more here. And then let this go calm down. Yeah, I mean, you always put a buy stop or limit when I'm in a trade. Yeah, and that's not a bad thing with you being, pretty new to it. And I did have a buy stop on. I had the buy stop up here, and now I've moved it here. You see it, and I'm just changing that out. Man, the exact thing that happening that you talked about 2 hours ago. Yeah. Well, yeah, yeah, that's true. So we'll see if we get the full Asia low sweep over here on ES. It has held price up much more than NASDAQ, obviously. We may have an SMT here something like that, or like this going into New York session, and maybe maybe use that as a part of your case to go back up from here, right? Because we've already swept Asia over here. We swept out some good 4-hour liquidity points. That's plenty of sweeping for us to get that move back up if that's what the market is showing. So this may ES is going to probably make this slow and painful. But one thing I'll try to get you to see is, for me at least, if I when I get in, like you saw, like you were saying, well, I usually only stay in a trade for 20 minutes. Even though my framework goes, much to the much higher time frame, in the thick of it, I'm really not in the trade for all that long, right? And then once my target gets hit, I'm done until I basically see another target. Yeah, New York session is fast. Um, I don't really have a same strategy really. Like, where are we on the 4-hour and daily? Daily to me can be kind of ugly to read sometimes. I mean, the where the wicks are very important, how the body's closing, that's important. Not knocking using it. And sometimes there's a fair value gap on the daily, and if it is, that's a very good level. Or if you see, a really clear swing high or swing low on the daily, you better pay attention to it. But I would say nine times out of 10, 8 times out of 10, my levels are coming off the 4-hour, and I'll accept 1-hour levels, but I usually stay in the 1-hour, 4-hour time frame to see, like right here, like if I came to the chart right now, all right, what am I looking at? All right, here's the 1-hour. So where are my highs and lows? Like what's next? Okay, if I went up, I would have this high and this high. That's a pretty long extension. Let's look under. Where would we go lower? Oh, we got all these things just stacked up right underneath where we are right now. Okay, so that looks convenient. What is the high time frame telling me about structure? Well, obviously we're overall really bullish, but in the last day or two we have had bearish price action. Okay, is it fair to say that maybe that leg isn't done on the high time frame? Yes, I think that's fair because we got a ton of liquidities sitting very close to where we are. I mean, probably 1 or 2 good days of movement of the high time frame, and all this is swept out. I think look, trying to understand it at that level. If you understand where the high time frame's going, then from there it's really easy to, one, find a fair value gap on the 1 and 4 hour because there are not many of them, and use them, right? So, like, what did this thing do when it tapped us? It rejected, it left Asia high in the fair value gap. So, going into London session, we want it lower. What do we want to see? 4-hour candle starting. We want to see it go up, give us the high wick of the 4-hour, and manipulate lower. And luckily, we had a 1-hour fair value gap, a London high to use as additional clues in in this how the 4 hours forming to kind of put all together into, hey, I think the move of the session is going to be sweep Asia high, target Asia low, and potentially these other lows underneath. Look at this. NQ just smacked. Look at that. Smacked. I'm going to hold my last runner until uh, Asia low gets hit. Oh, yes. So I'm gonna, even though this is a different chart, I'm gonna just put this as my TP2. So keep in mind of those high time frames. What is that telling you? And then just gradually go down. I know I sleep. Uh, yeah. Uh, I try to sleep a little early, like when I get done working, and then since I've been playing around in London sessions some mornings, I wake up and like I said, I can probably within like 5 minutes of looking at the chart, I can tell if I'm going to be interested in it or not. And if I'm not, I just don't mess with London at all, and go back to bed. If it's a good trading opportunity, then I throw on some coffee and lock in for a few hours, make some moolah, and get me a few hours rest, keep it going, man. Can't do, normal effort gives normal results. If you want abnormal results in things, you gotta do things that people may think is abnormal. I want to take a save this. Hey, look at that. uh, yeah, you gotta kind of like you gotta zoom your scope out, man, and look at the big picture of it, and then find in that big picture just that little chunk of the pie that you can be extremely confident in. Does that make sense? So this is a fresh 15-minute candle. If we get the extension that I want, what would we do? I'll do my best to stream New York in the morning. But think about this, right? All right, we just started a new 15-minute candle. it was pushing against me. I saw profit going down, going down, going down. But I remember to myself, right? How does a bearish candle usually form? Open, high, open, high, low, close, right? So because it's pushing against me, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a full-on reversal. My draw on liquidity is still open. These Seeing these numbers flash, if you don't look at it like a game and you look at it like a freaking casino, it messes with you. So I try to like drown that out completely and just know my risk is off the table. My stop loss is at break even. I'm good. That doesn't mean hold it forever and be greedy with it, but if your idea still stands and there's still room for it to go, don't doubt yourself at this point, right? I mean, you made it this far and you're right. So enjoy being right because you're not going to always be right. That's the way I started thinking of it. And that's helped me like really hold my runners, like, hold that last contract and really let it try to extend. Because not all moves are going to extend this much, right? Maybe my next two trades are maybe just TP1, right? So when you're right and it's really moving for you, give it some breathing room. Because some people will get this stop loss, and they'll start dragging it down. I'm not against putting it into profit. Where I learned trading from. Um, Honestly, so I started trading in 2020. I traded mostly crypto at first and just like regular stocks, just buying shares. I wasn't really trading them. I was just like learning about investing and putting some of my money into stocks and things like that. But I dabbled in it. Um, I started doing. I did options for a while before I landed in futures. Um, I like futures much more. Um, I used to. I really just studied online. Um, and I took in a lot of information, probably looking back, probably too much information. I think you can go online and get so many different things and whatever. So at some point, that's great, but at some point, you have to accept, like, hey, I know enough, and me learning more is just complicating what I have going on in my head. It's giving me conflicting things, signals. It's giving, at some point too much education, too much information, I think can be a bad thing. So I kind of had to come back a little bit from all the educational stuff that I had done or listened to and watched. So I got this 5 minute here. And you got this as your 5 minute dealing range. So what do we not want to see? We don't want this thing to get above equilibrium and start holding as support. Here's our equilibrium. Um, so I dabbled in options and then came to the futures space. Um, I've learned from a lot of people, honestly. I mean, I learned the fair value gaps and uh, fair value gaps, uh, draws on liquidity, all that stuff from ICT. So a lot of my trading is accredited to him, um, for sure. But I think it's easy to even just if you go to ICT and look at his catalog of videos, it still can provide you so much information. So it's kind of this, and he even says this, like, you really only need one or two of his models to be a good trader, right? He has so much information. He's so knowledgeable that um, sometimes people can take in, I think, too much of it. So I've basically found what fits how I view the markets the best, um, and gotten rid of a lot of stuff. And you know, uh, that's kind of been my best thing. But um, it, the starting point for me is understand for you, uh, in my opinion, would be understanding the draw on liquidity. Where is the liquidity? Why is it? Why does the market want to go there? Why is it going to go there? You know, that I think that's going to help you get the direction of the move. If you have the direction of the move right, you can usually make some money. You may not have the perfect entries, but you can usually make some money. No, I'm not looking for longs. Maybe in New York AM. No, I'm just gonna honestly, this 5 minutes about to get flipped here. I may just take this last contract off. I'm up almost $500. I wanted it to just tap this 5 minute and come back down, but now this doesn't even have a 5 minute, so it's not even really a corresponding gap. No, nothing on the 15 minutes sticks out to me. Nothing on that. What sticks out to me, I mean, I guess the hourly, but it doesn't even have a fair value gap yet. I'm going to be very strict on this 5 minute candle. I don't want this bullishness to hold. Like that is technically inversing that, but that's pretty close. But sometimes you gotta be wise with where you just call it, because even if I sell right here right now, I'm a good bit in profit. I'm under my TP2 still. So this is the start of the candle, first minute of the 5 minute. Do I see any sort of pullback? I don't. This is very impulsive, which may push some people out of the market for the next leg down. So I want to be, the way I'm looking at that is I want to see impulsiveness. I don't want to see like grinding. If it's just grinding against me, then that to me is different than if I get one or two big pumps up, two candles that are really big and high wicks like this. That to me is showing me that they're driving the market up, clearing sellers out of the market, freeing up sales so that they can sell. Right? So if the institution wants to sell, he needs a bunch of buy orders, which is what your shorts stop loss is, right? So anybody that had their stop loss above that 5 minute, they just ran it and they could potentially still dump this, depending on how this closes. It's not looking good. If it holds bullish, I'm just going to close and go to bed. I want to see this flip. because we still have one more draw, and we still have Asia low. 15's about to close ultra bullish. We do have a 15. It may drag into that. I'm gonna just have this closed position thing up. I actually like this in TradingView because I can hit the X and leave that there and still change both charts, and this still stays just for NQ close. Yeah, you see how this is kind of just grinding higher? It's not very, I mean, you had this one kind of impulsive thing right here, but this to me is more set up that it's going to keep grinding higher, which I, definitely don't want to be in. I want to see something impulsive where they're just taking people stops out so that they can get in. That's what I want to see. Reason I'm not looking for longs is, well, one, the high time frame is bearish. Two, I don't, we really haven't satisfied a big draw on liquidity on ES yet. All we've gotten is this minor 15-minute relative equal low. Um, yeah, that thing's pretty bullish. All right, man. I think I'm gonna call it. This thing might still dump, honestly, but I'm gonna leave your quote up there. If this thing dumps right now, I'm gonna be so mad. I'm gonna be so mad. All right. Uh, made made him at about 450 on the accounts. There was our original trade we mocked up. We were gonna run through these lows, so I mean, thing friggin', I mean, we smacked the trade. We had only very little drawdown. That's what you get, man, when you get the high time frame and dial it in one step down at a time and approach it like a sniper. So we have this. I don't believe it's drawing into. All these got hit. This looks actually pretty freaking good too. it gives us that. That's gonna, man. I, I'm looking like it wants me to sleep. I'm gonna close it on this can't be. This thing looks like it's gonna run bullish for a second. So now, what are you looking at for New York? You got London high up here. You got another 1 hour high. No, you don't. Never mind. Yep. Yeah, London high. This would be your London low if this doesn't get taken, or if it doesn't go under that. That would definitely be your London high. You could look for sweep that, or you know, push up, and then before New York or the beginning of New York, you get this sweep, and then you can target maybe London high, some Asia low. All right, man. Hey, did you add me on any of the social media sites? If so, which one did you add me on? I'll make sure to uh, send you a message. Instagram. All right. Sounds good, man. All right, brother. I hope you have a good rest of your morning slash night. What time is it there? What time is it where you're living? 11:36. Oh, that's not bad. All right, man. Well, have a good rest of your night. I'll catch you on the next one.